The rain fell in steady sheets across the windows of the Mercedes as it pulled up to the curb outside Metropolitan Children's Hospital. Alexander Reeves sat in the back seat, his expensive suit perfectly pressed despite the long day of back-to-back board meetings. At 58, he was one of the wealthiest men in the country, his technology empire worth over $8 billion. But tonight, all that success felt hollow as he stared up at the hospital where his own grandson was fighting for his life. 8-year-old Christopher had been in the pediatric intensive care unit for 3 days now, his small body ravaged by a rare form of leukemia that had progressed faster than anyone had anticipated. Alexander's daughter Jennifer and her husband were maintaining a constant vigil, but Alexander could only steal moments between crucial business negotiations to visit. As he stepped out of the car, pulling his coat tight against the rain, Alexander barely noticed the woman sitting on the bench near the hospital's entrance. She was hunched over, her thin jacket soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her head. In her hands, she clutched a small, worn photograph. Alexander was almost at the entrance when he heard her voice, barely audible above the sound of the rain. "Please," she was saying, though no one seemed to be listening. "Someone please help me. Please save my daughter." The words stopped Alexander in his tracks. Something in the raw desperation of her voice cut through his own grief and worry. He turned to look at her properly for the first time. The woman was young, probably in her late 20s, with the kind of exhausted appearance that spoke of sleepless nights and endless worry. Her clothes were clean but worn, and Alexander could see that she was shivering in the cold rain. "Excuse me?" Alexander said, approaching her carefully. "Are you all right?" The woman looked up, and Alexander saw that her eyes were red with tears and exhaustion. She seemed startled that someone had actually spoken to her. I'm sorry," she stammered. "I didn't mean to bother anyone. I was just—" "You weren't bothering me," Alexander said gently. "What's wrong?" "You mentioned your daughter?" Fresh tears spilled down the woman's cheeks. "She's dying," she said simply. "My baby girl is dying, and I can't save her." Alexander felt his chest tighten. "What's your name?" "Maria," she said. "Maria Santos." "My daughter is Elena. She's only 6 years old." Alexander sat down on the bench beside her, ignoring the rain that immediately began soaking through his expensive coat. "Tell me what's happening." Maria looked at him with surprise, as if she couldn't believe someone was actually listening. "Elena has a brain tumor," she said, her voice breaking. "The doctors say she needs surgery immediately, but the insurance, they denied the claim. They say it's experimental, too risky." She held up the photograph in her hands, and Alexander saw a beautiful little girl with dark eyes and a bright smile, wearing a pink dress that was probably her best outfit. "How much does the surgery cost?" Alexander asked quietly. Maria laughed bitterly. $300,000. I might as well ask for $3 million. I'm a single mother, I work at a grocery store, I make $12 an hour. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I've been sitting here for hours asking anyone who will listen for help. I've called every charity, every foundation, every church in the city. No one can help." Alexander studied the photograph of Elena, seeing in her young face an echo of his own grandson's innocence and vulnerability. "Where is Elena now?" "Upstairs. 4th floor. She's getting weaker every day. The doctors say without the surgery she has maybe 2 weeks. Maria's voice dropped to a whisper. "I've prayed to every saint I can think of. I've begged God to take me instead. I don't know what else to do." The rain continued to fall around them as Alexander absorbed what Maria had told him. $300,000, an amount that wouldn't even register as a rounding error in his quarterly financial reports. But to this woman it represented an impossible mountain. "Maria," Alexander said carefully, "what if I told you I could help?" Maria looked at him with the wariness of someone who had been disappointed too many times to dare hope. "Are you a doctor?" "No, but I have resources. I could pay for Elena's surgery." The words hung in the air between them. Maria stared at him as if he had spoken in a foreign language. "I don't understand," she said finally. "You don't even know us. Why would you—" "Because I'm a father," Alexander said simply. "And right now, my grandson is upstairs in that hospital fighting his own battle. I know what it feels like to watch a child suffer and feel helpless to stop it. Maria began to cry again, but these were different tears. "You're serious? You would really do that?" "I'm completely serious. But first I want to meet Elena." They took the elevator to the 4th floor, where Maria led Alexander through the pediatric ward to a small room at the end of the hall. Inside, a tiny girl with a bandaged head lay sleeping in a hospital bed that seemed far too big for her small frame. Medical equipment surrounded her, monitoring her vital signs with soft beeping sounds. Elena stirred as they entered, opening her eyes to focus on her mother. When she saw Alexander, her expression became curious but not afraid. "Mama?" Elena's voice was weak but clear. "Yes, baby. This is Mr. Alexander. He's here to help us." Elena smiled, and Alexander felt something shift in his chest. This child, facing her own mortality with courage that humbled him, reminded him powerfully of why he had worked so hard to build his fortune in the first place. Not for the money itself, but for the ability to make a difference when it mattered most. "Hello, Elena," Alexander said, pulling a chair close to her bed. "Your mama tells me you like princesses." Elena nodded weakly. "My favorite is Belle, because she likes to read books like me." Alexander spent the next hour talking with Elena about books and princesses and her dreams for when she got better. Maria sat beside them, watching with amazement as this wealthy stranger connected with her daughter as if he had known her all her life. When Elena finally drifted back to sleep, Alexander and Maria stepped into the hallway. "I'm going to take care of this tonight," Alexander told her. "I'll speak with the hospital administrators and Elena's surgical team. We'll get her the best possible care." Maria grabbed his hand, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know how to thank you. I don't even know your full name." "Alexander Reeves," he said. "And you don't need to thank me. Just focus on being there for Elena." "Alexander Reeves," Maria repeated, then her eyes widened with recognition. "The Alexander Reeves? From Reeves Technologies?" Alexander nodded. "That's right. Oh my God," Maria whispered. "You're one of the richest men in the world, and you were sitting in the rain listening to me beg for help." "Money doesn't make grief any easier to bear," Alexander said quietly. "And it doesn't make a parent's love any stronger. We're not so different, Maria. We both love our children and would do anything to save them." True to his word, Alexander worked through the night. He spoke with hospital administrators, consulted with Elena's doctors, and arranged for the country's leading pediatric neurosurgeon to fly in from Johns Hopkins. By morning, Elena was scheduled for surgery with the best medical team money could assemble, but Alexander's involvement didn't stop there. As he learned more about Maria's situation, he discovered that she had been caring for Elena alone while working multiple jobs, often sleeping in the hospital waiting room because she couldn't afford both parking and food. Alexander quietly arranged for Maria to have a room at a nearby hotel, set up a fund to cover all of Elena's ongoing medical expenses, and made sure Maria could take paid leave from work to focus on her daughter's recovery. Elena's surgery was a complete success. The tumor was removed without complications, and within days, she was sitting up in bed. Her bright smile returned, asking when she could go home and read her books again. 3 weeks later, as Elena was being discharged from the hospital, Maria found Alexander in the waiting room where he had been visiting his own grandson, who was also responding well to treatment. "Mr. Reeves," Maria said, "I've been thinking about something you said that first night." "What's that?" "You said we weren't so different." "But we are different in one important way." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "You had the power to save my daughter, and you chose to use it. Not everyone would have made that choice." Alexander was quiet for a moment. "You know what the real difference is between us, Maria?" "What?" "You were willing to sit in the rain for hours, begging strangers for help to save your child. You never gave up, never stopped fighting for her. That takes a kind of courage I'm not sure I possess." As Alexander watched Elena skip down the hospital hallway, chattering excitedly about going home, he reflected on how much this experience had changed him. For years, he had been so focused on building his business empire that he had forgotten the simple power of human connection, of being present when someone needed help. Elena's recovery became a turning point for Alexander. He established a foundation dedicated to helping families facing impossible medical expenses, ensuring that no parent would have to sit in the rain begging for someone to save their child. But more importantly, he had rediscovered something he had lost in his pursuit of success: the understanding that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the ability to ease suffering, to offer hope, and to remind others that they are not alone in their darkest moments. Sometimes, Alexander realized, the greatest gift you can give isn't money. It's simply the willingness to listen when someone cries out for help, and the courage to respond with compassion rather than indifference. In saving Elena, Alexander had saved something in himself as well: his connection to what really mattered, his understanding of what it meant to be truly rich.